So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pat Dunwoody, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian ETF Association and co-host of today's event, although I think I'm the only host that's going to be up here. Along with the association, we've partnered with 369 Global, and we hope that this will be the first of many events going forward. We want to target new-ish Canadians, and I'm going to add that ish on the end because I think there are some people here that aren't new by definition, but will still get a lot of value out of today's event. Today we're targeting advisory roles, but I know there's other roles within the financial services industry that I think we'd like to target going forward, but we will leave those for another day. The summit became a reality over a coffee, really, between Dinesh Kumar of 369 Global and Gautam, I'm going to get your last name wrong, but he's the Director of Data, Cultural, and Enablement for Newcomer and Cultural Client Segment at RBC. We all had a huge passion for supporting deserving individuals that have experience and or the aptitude for our industry, and we wanted to help them out, and we're hoping that this is the first of many events going forward. You'll note during the day that we're not going to spend a lot of time on introductions or backgrounds of the speakers. Full bios are on the website, so if you haven't already, please visit the website and you'll not only see the bios, but you'll see links to some webinars that we did last year, financial literacy webinars, that I think, again, would add value to whomever wants to watch them. We don't want to take up time, so we want to give you as much information as we can going forward. I want to start the day today by thanking our sponsors and supporters, because without them, we would not have been able to do this today. Our presenting partners, RBC, thank you so much for this amazing space and time. We fell into it. We were looking around for space, and they offered this, and we grabbed it. 369 Connect, for all of your social media announcements, the website, and event logistics. Again, couldn't have done it without you. Our industry partners, some of them out there have this. So we've got Bacchus, which is the largest voluntary professional membership association of financial advisors in Canada. They represent 17,000 members and have 40 chapters across the country. The Independent Financial Brokers of Canada, a national not-for-profit association that represents independent insurance and mutual fund financial service professionals. The TMX Group, which is a financial services company that operates equity, fixed income derivative, and energy market exchanges, with the most well-known being the TSX. BlackRock, a multinational investment firm based in New York City, but also has large operations in Canada, specifically Toronto. They are the world's largest asset manager with over $8.5 trillion under management. The IFC Institute, an educational supplier, and if you're looking to start or advance your career in financial services, the IFC Institute can help with online learning. They help students work towards achieving their career goals in financial services, and they offer courses that will help your career and give you training in banking, insurance, mutual funds, or ETFs. And the Federation of Mutual Fund Dealers, they're an association of mutual fund dealers and support them through advocacy and education. And our media partners, which I know none of them need introduction, but will be a valuable resource for you in the financial services industry. We've got Wealth Professional, Advisor.ca, Investment Executive, and the Globe and Mail here. And our sponsors. Fundata, they offer a variety of products and services that solve problems for a number of industries, specifically ours though, using data. And whether it's custom or white labeled, Fundata's team can customize solutions that meet their client needs. Caldwell Securities, a full service brokerage company that believes in preserving and growing their clients' wealth through personalized and customized flexible plans. They foster long-term partnerships and have been offering investment advice since 1980. Ramachandran Law, strive to provide exceptional legal, business, and advisory services to meet their stakeholders' ever-changing demands in this ever-changing world, specifically supporting new Canadians. And CI Asante Wealth Management, with a mission to deliver complete wealth management solutions for professional advisors and to support them in creating wealth and prosperity for Canadian families. Please join me in thanking all of these organizations for believing in this important subject. Now, we have a slight change in the agenda because the MPP Deepak Anand is a little bit delayed, so we're going to shift things up, but we will still start with a short video greeting from the co-founder and executive chairman of 369 Global, as he's out of town and unable to join us today.
Greetings to all of you from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there on this momentous occasion on the first ever Newcomer Financial Advisor Summit. I'm very grateful to RBC and the Canadian ETF Association for their support and critical input in this event. 369 Global is a fast-growing conglomerate of companies that is spreading across the world, and one of the reasons why I'm here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We have been very focused on the newcomer journey, whether it's individuals coming into Canada, foreign direct investment coming into Canada, or businesses looking to expand globally. As Canada looks at the Indo-Pacific plan and the opportunities that are there, 369 Global is strategically positioning itself not only as a business, but to leverage the expertise of newcomers like some of you that have experience in your home country as well as in Canada. And this is the reason why I think this Newcomer Financial Summit is so critical. Not only does it leverage the experiences that you have in your home country for your new home today in Canada, but it's also going to give you some tips on how you can really scale up your experience to provide a unique opportunity and service to Canadians. Your input and your experience is critical here in Canada. The experience that you bring, the ability for you to tap into networks, whether it's within your home country, within your community here in Canada, or across the board to many Canadians, is an amazing talent that we all need, not only in the financial sector, but many industries here in Canada. I'd like to thank all the special guests that have come to support this initiative. Your support really validates the importance of this summit here at its first inaugural event. Thank you so much for your support, and good luck to all of you. Enjoy the summit.
Thank you so much. It is really a privilege for me to introduce the next panel on behalf of Wealth Professional Canada and Key Media. So Key Media is a global B2B publisher. We run the Wealth Professional Canada website, Benefit and Pensions Monitor magazine, and the investment news websites and magazines in the United States. This essentially helps us provide the most in-depth and wide financial services content, specifically for advisors and also in the institutional space across North America. And I implore you all to engage with all of them to stay relevant within the industry and while learning from your peers as well. Coming up on its 10th year, WP, or Wealth Professional, is especially well placed within the Canadian context and is a free-to-subscribe site. Given the editorial strategy of practice management and industry news, WP Online and Events certainly is a great resource for immigrant advisors. It is a free site, and I implore you to please do, when you get some time, to have a look. And don't forget to check out our advisor support page, which can be of a lot of help as well. And as new immigrants, and being one myself, we often tend to get tunnel visioned on the next steps, the next job, making money, and we often tend to lose sight of the bigger picture. And so some bits of wisdom, hopefully that helps, is again, don't stop learning and improving, continue to upskill and learn new strategies, join industry associations, and read up on everything your professional world has to offer, and learn from your peers. And this is perhaps the surest way to succeed, and WP and Key Media is happy to play a part in this journey. The panel on newcomer advisors on the challenges to get work and support is being moderated by Vithu Ramachandran. Vithu is the founder of Ramachandran Law Professional Corporation, located in Scarborough. Vithu's practice areas include immigration, civil litigation, family law, real estate, corporate, and wills and estate. And Vithu has previously worked at an uptown law firm, Jorians and Lee, where his practice was extensively focused in various types of litigation. Vithu obtained his law degree from Hofstra University School of Law, where he was also the president of the Human Rights Law Society and obtained a certificate of distinction and a specialization in international law. Vithu is bilingual and provides services both in English and Tamil. So please join me in welcoming Vithu and leading the panel on the challenges to get work and support. Thank you, everyone.
You stole my tongue. I don't know what to say. That was a lot nicer than the bio I gave, so thank you for whoever made it so much more pretty and elegant. I'm not that special. But who is special are these three individuals here, because they were in your shoe at one point. And what we're really going to talk about is the journey of how they got to this seat. And I think that's the journey that you're here to listen to. So I would normally go ladies first, but I was specifically asked by Neelam not to have her go first. So I will start at the end, on the left, with a good friend of ours, Fazaad Bacchus, followed by Shaun Darchiville, and then we'll get to Neelam.
Best for the last.
Yeah, best for the last, Neelam Advani. So, Fazaad, why don't you start with this a little intro? I think the second part I really want you to talk about is the why. When we were brainstorming, we talked about the why, and that's critical, and why it's critical to understand the why, and then describe your path.
Good. So you decided to go with age before beauty, I observed. Yeah? Huh? So usually I'm never in this kind of a situation. I'm usually the person that asks the questions. So now I have to give answers, so it makes me uncomfortable. But still, I'm going to give it a shot. So Vithu's asking why. Why am I here in Canada? A little bit of background of myself. So some of it is written on LinkedIn already that you would have seen. I ran a very successful career for about 22 years in the financial services industry in the Caribbean, from starting out as an advisor where you're making cold calls and you're building your business from one client to another, all the way into executive branch management, where I'm sitting every week or every month, whatever you may have it, in board meetings with CEOs and CFOs, etc. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Caribbean, but I got tired of the sun and the sea and the sand and all that, and I thought, I'll come to Canada. But a more compelling reason for coming to Canada was that my family had migrated when the Caribbean was going through its financial problems back in the late 70s, early 80s. All my family migrated. So I thought that eventually what I would do is that I would pack up that situation and I would come here to Canada. So my why for Canada was not to seek a better life, as most people have migrated for. My reason for coming to Canada was to be able to be with my family and spend the next 25, 30 years, because I came at 48 years of age. I figure if I had another 30 years to live, I would spend my life, enjoying with them. Just a 10-second add-in on that. My family all lived in Winnipeg. I got my residence for Canada in 1992. I went to Winnipeg, and they told me in summer it's Winnipeg, in winter it's Winterpeg. And I gave up my residence instantly. I said, no way, I'm going back to the Caribbean. And then, 20 years later, I came. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's great. And we're gonna, as you see this panel develop, I'm really gonna harp on the why, because a lot of you will go through a lot of things and experiences and negativity and not finding a proper job, being undervalued, not being represented properly. But we always say that you have to understand why. And when you have that framework in front of you, why, everything looks like a much smaller problem. Because there's a bigger issue, a reason for you coming here. So that's a theme for this panel at least. So next we have Shaun. Shaun, why, and describe your journey.
I'm biased. I've been in the industry for 35 years. I came to Canada when I was 6 years old from Guyana, and I've lived in Toronto ever since. But I am biased towards the business. I love the business. It's been everything to me, and I'll never leave it. I don't plan on retiring. I plan to work differently as I move through my career, and I'm at a phase now of my life where I'd like to help people get into the business because I love it so much. I'd never leave it, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for people like yourselves to really help people and make money. There's a lot of places you can make money. Build your career, educate yourself, ongoing education. There's endless ways you can do that. But to actually truly, sincerely help people and to get involved with families, there's no end in sight for that. And the industry is in a critical state right now. We don't like to say it, we don't like to talk about it, but it is true, right? It is true. But I won't jump into that yet. I won't talk about my story and all the instruments I could play and all the concerts I'm going to see. That's all boring stuff. But I grew up in the business. 19, 20 years old, I started, and I've stayed in the business. And think about it, right? In 1987, how many Shauns were there? Right? One. That's how many, I'll tell you, one. Not two or three, one. Right? I worked on Bay Street, where I worked in back office and I worked my way up, right? But back then I just worked. I just worked, and somebody told me something a long time ago. It made a lot of sense. It said that if you ever want to get ahead in the business, be interesting and be interested. So right away I thought, what am I going to do to be interesting? Started running. Hey, I was running last night. Started doing something else. Went to see a concert. Hey, what did you see? And then I started just moving along from there, and it all kind of tumbleweeded into what it is today, which I'd love to share more with you as we go along, because I have what I feel is a very real perspective on the industry, which a lot of people aren't talking about.
Wonderful. All right. We got the best for last, as she claimed. So Neelam, please take it away as to with your why and your path.
Thank you, Vithu. I just want to start off by saying I'm so fortunate to be sitting here, and it seems surreal because I think it was maybe 9, 10 years ago that I was one of you. And I want to give a shout out to my tribe right here, because if I'm sitting here, it's all because of my RBCers and my Rotman crew that I see right there. So just want to start with the why, and I think for all of us newcomers, the why is so important. And the reason why I like to address the why, and that's a question that I think each one of us must reflect on as we come into this country, is because, first of all, Canada is very welcoming, and yes, we all were asked to come here in some way or the other. Oh, it's easy to migrate to Canada, and opportunities here, but if we really know what is our specific why, it's just going to make our journey that much special, because we are uprooting ourselves from our comfort zone. And just to speak to that, I just want to give you a brief background of myself, because I'm, of course, originally I'm from India, from Bombay, and I lived and worked in Hong Kong for 15 years. I was in an apparel or garment manufacturing organization, doing very well, of course, and Hong Kong is a wonderful place to bring a family and be there, great lifestyle. But then I decided to come to Canada for my son's education. And that was a very important why for me, because I foreseed a particular type of future for him, and that was my why. And this is the why that I held very close as I went through my own challenges through the first 1 year of getting acclimatized to Canada in all ways. Not just the weather, because the weather is the one thing that we, of course, take a time getting used to, but also culture. And also, in my case, it was also jobs, because I came from manufacturing, had a very successful career, and though I did do my research, I did not realize how hard it was to get into the garment field or manufacturing field here, just because there's not too many opportunities. And that's when I had to go through 14 months of unemployment, knocking on doors, going through shoe leathering or networking, all of those things, to get to that one first job that I got in 14 months. And every time I went through the challenge, I said, why? Why am I here? Because it was my choice, and it was my choice to do something for the betterment of the future of my son. And that's my why that I want to hold close to.
Okay, that's wonderful. I think just to piggyback, I myself was an immigrant. I actually was an asylum seeker. So, my parents came here because of education, and safety. So there is a lot of different whys, but now since we're here, what we really want to talk about next, and I think what you guys would like to know, is what's the best ways to get their foot in the door? Shaun.
When you're talking about why, I think to my first winter in Canada, right? December 1973, and thinking to myself, why am I here? This was supposed to be better. That's the way it was sold to me. So I do have props, which I will share with you all. And I actually tried to make it visible. Triangle, looks like a simple triangle, but it's not. So this is the traditional investment advisory model, right? Your advisor on the top, team, your clients, top 20, next below that, then the smaller clients at the bottom. That's your typical advisory model, right? And everybody's running this model. The only thing they didn't realize is the model no longer applies. The client community and the advisor community both think they're going to live forever. They are right, just not here. Everyone's got a clock, right? So this is what exists today. And I really believe that this is where the opportunity is today. There's a massive amount of need out there. It doesn't matter the dollar value of the client anymore. Now, the massive amount of need is at the top. But guess what? The advisor's still at the top, pretending he's only needing to talk to 20 or 30 people. That's not the case anymore. There's a ton of work out there that people aren't doing. People talk about AI taking over business. A lot of business is not even being done. AI could take that and it'll actually help people. So the advisory model is this. If you want to get into the business, in my opinion, after being around it for 35 years, this is the opportunity. And it's massive, and people aren't thinking about this because this is what they're thinking about, and this is what their teams are structured. Compensation is structured this way, time management is structured this way, every single thing. But the clients are getting older. And their situations are getting more complex. Family dynamics are changing, people are fighting, businesses being transitioned. There's a lot of things happening that's real. And people are not paying attention to this. If it were me, and I always think about this, if it were me, I'd approach, look at teams, get yourself organized, and present yourself to a handful of teams and say, this is what I want to do for you. And show them this triangle. And if they tell you it's not that way, it's a fantasy. It is this way. There's no doubt about it. So to me, that's where I think the massive opportunity is that a lot of people aren't talking about, because everybody wants to talk about this way. Firms are still pandering to the top advisors. But meanwhile, all the clients at the bottom are not being looked after. Now here's where the work comes in. And again, admin, always looked down upon, right, in our industry, in a lot of industries. Admin is very important. Spending time in back office is hugely important. Getting a letter of recommendation from a back office manager is your golden ticket to any team in the country. Right? Trading, all that stuff's going to be done automated. So when I turn this triangle up, what does it really mean? It means a lot of people need help. Right? So you put an action plan together for clients. In the old model, you make an RSP collection for these people down here once a year. Maybe a tax-free savings account. And then you turn it upside down, and then all of a sudden everybody's got an action plan that's 10, 20, 15 points long. Who's going to run that? And everybody's got it. It is a fact. So that to me is where, this is my humble opinion, just what I see. And I run a very solid practice based on this model and understanding it. I don't run this model. It's a fantasy. I run this model because it's real and it has to do with people. Follow people, that's where the opportunity is. Don't follow the industry. Follow people. People run the industry. It's not the other way around, right? Anyway, there's my 4.5 cents.
Thank you. All right. Fazaad, you want to take it on next?
What was the question, Vithu?
All right.
I kind of just jumped in there. I didn't really need a question. I kind of had my thing ready to go.
The question is tips for them to get into the workforce, or let's expand it a bit, for them to progress in their career, or to max out their potential if they're already midway there.
So my understanding is that we're dealing with a financial summit for newcomer advisors. It tells me that you'd like to be a financial advisor. And you just came to Canada and you're here 6 months or 3 months or less than a year, and you want to advise Canadians on financial matters within Canada. How are you going to be perceived? How is the general public going to be looking at you? Do you know what you're talking about? Are you experienced? Have you built up? So to get your foot in the door, you have to get your foot in the door. That's the first thing. Understanding that I have to jump into it. One of the biggest problems that we have, especially when you're an adult Canadian, when you come into Canada, you don't come with immigration where you emigrate because a family member has sponsored you. You have to come as a skilled worker or a qualified person. And when you come as a qualified person, it means that in back home, you basically have a degree, you have a certain amount of money, you have your home. Then you come to Canada, and the first place they're going to tell you to do is that you got to go rent a basement. You've never seen a basement before, and you realize you're living down in somebody's, under somebody's house, and you don't see anything. And back home, you had somebody that cut the grass, and you had somebody that cleaned the yard, and all that. And here you're thinking, what did I just do? And that's your reality. But one has to understand that if you're going through hell, don't stop. Just go through. Keep going. So if you say to yourself that I want to become a financial advisor in Canada, and there are different types of financial advisors. You can go to your banking and become a financial advisor at the banking level. You can go to an insurance company, become a financial advisor there. You can go to an investment company, become an advisor there. There are different levels of financial advice. You have to make the decision which one you'd like to be, because both of them or all of them have different levels of qualification and different levels of compensation. My experience has been that the person who decides to become a financial advisor who works on commissions is always going to starve. In the beginning, of course. In the beginning, if you decide to work on commissions, it's very difficult for you unless every single day you're going to get out there and you're going to do every single thing. You have to network. You have to use LinkedIn. You have to use Twitter feeds. I don't have Twitter. I don't know what it means, but I heard about it. You have to, too old for Twitter. Twitter feeds. You have to do these kinds of trade shows. You have to do everything to be able to gain your clientele. And getting your clientele is not that difficult. You think it is, but it's not. What's difficult is accepting rejection in our business. Because when you go there and ask somebody, especially, you come to Canada, you'd like to be a financial advisor, perhaps you were one back home. Happened to me, my first cousin. I said, do you have a mortgage? He said, yes. I said, what sort of insurance you have? He said, the regular credit one. And they taught me what to say. And he says, I'd rather not do business with my family. And this was my first cousin. It hurt. It hurt so much. So how do you get your foot in the door? Ask yourself what type of advisor you want to be. Whether you want to work at an MGA or you want to work at a career shop or you want to work at a financial banking institution, and start making your choices. You can switch whenever you want, but start making your choices and start doing your research. It's easier if you've got people in your community who've already there and you can lean on them. I think that's about enough there, Vithu. Yeah?
All right,
Yeah.
Neelam, it's up to you.
Thank you. Fazaad, I just want to piggyback on what Fazaad said about types of financial advisor roles available. And I think you pretty much covered, the compensation part of it. You could go commission-based, part-time, so on and so forth. But I just want to offer a perspective to my own journey. The reason is because I think the summit, addressing to what we were talking about on the agenda, is how do we break through into a financial world? And I do not come from a financial world. My background was all manufacturing. And so when I did not get that job in my own field, I had to quickly start thinking, where else could I work? How do I put food on the table? Because that is really the bottom line. Like, I was not even looking at what type of roles are available, except that I needed a job. And so I had to start thinking about what skills did I have to offer in this Canadian work market, because that is so important. And I want to just put it out there that I struggled really firstly to understand what my skills are. And so when I was knocking on doors, it was really hard for me. It was hard for me to firstly figure out which door I wanted to knock at, because manufacturing was close to me. I could not get into the manufacturing field. I was trying. Where else could I go? And then someone recommended, you have what's called as a transferable skill. And the transferable skill is that of communication, being in customer service. You worked in a fast-paced environment. You have superior EQ, as we can make out the way you are interacting with us. And these skills could actually be suitable for finance. And that's when I said, never occurred to me to get into finance, because, hey, I'll tell you very honestly, finance is not me. If you were to ask me the Neelam of 2013, finance, I would not be there. But as I got into the whole interview process, started to find out what customer service is about, I realized what I have is being able to connect to people. And if you were to ask me today what is finance about, I would say it's about people. Because what I do in my role every day is connect with people. I build relationships, I build trust, and it's only when you build trust is that you're able to offer financial products to your clients. So if you're looking to open that door to finance, if that's your passion, I would say, firstly, find out what's your skill set look like. Do you love people? Because if you do, then yes, definitely that's a tick mark. The other thing is fast-paced environment, and we're in an industry that's constantly evolving and growing. Like, I want to give an example where I work at right now. I lead a branch that's called as Meeting Place Evolve, and that's full-service digital branch. We are really evolving the way we serve our clients. So if you're ever curious how that looks like, to walk into a branch that has no cash, and then what are we doing if we have no cash? Well, we have more time to connect to our clients. So foot in the door, please first figure out what's the soft skill set that you have, what are the technical skill sets that you have, and are you passionate about it? Because I think it's a great opportunity to start your career again. It's an opportunity to discover what else can you do, and Canada can offer you that opportunity. So I would leave you with those 2 tips.
Okay, so I think that takes us into one of our next questions, and I think I'll give it to the other panelists, is the concept of transferable skills. Sometimes getting into the door that we want to get to is going to be hard or it's closed, and that's why we may be looking at a career change when we come over to a new place. So what are the other transferable skills that an individual may have to be very successful in this industry? And from your experience, what could you tell us about that?
I can go first. I always like doing that for some reason. I always find people to listen to me. Even though I don't need people to listen to me. But the transportable skill set to me is really thinking deeply about the person that you are trying to talk to. And instead of applying for a job, understand what their dynamic is. If they're running a team, Royal is at the top of the food chain. They've got a ton of branches all over the place. You know, what's their situation? What's the branch? What are they challenged with? And try to understand more deeply what they're looking at. If you're living in a certain area, wherever you're living, look at some of the teams. I would encourage you to phone some teams just randomly, Asante, Raymond James, and just, could I talk to you guys about your team dynamic, your client base? Is there something I could do to help and figure out if there's a match? That's what I would take it a different way instead of applying for a job, so to speak. I think that there's a huge opportunity to work at some of these organizations and really look at it from the other way, where you're trying to get to know what they're up against and if you can actually help them with it. Because when you have people dying, when you have people getting sick, you have real dynamics playing out and the market turns. You know, these are real things happening to people's lives, right? And you got to show up every day. Bomb goes off, doesn't matter, you got to show up, right? So these are real things people are faced with, right? And it's getting more dynamic and it's getting more like that. It's not so simple anymore in the world with these things, and everything affects the market, right? One of the amazing things I've seen in 35 years is just how this market has come to dominate the world. And it's on everybody's mind. So you talk to anybody in the business that you're going in front of, they're thinking of like 100 things. If you're tied into those 100 things they're thinking about, that's how you lock in. And finding that out is really the trick. Invite them out for dinner, invite them out for a drink, understand, you know, have them mentor you, look for opportunities like that. That's what I would encourage you to do. I'm mentoring about 3 people right now with that, you know, looking at teams in their local areas and talking to anybody on the team. It could be, you know, the lead person, or it could be a lead admin. Is a good place to start. But I try to understand that. So that's the way I would approach it, because people do need help out there.
Yeah, I'm no authority on transferring skills transference. I've been in this career now 33 years, so I am very myopic when it comes to this particular career. I expect to retire on it. So I guess Neelam said it best when she says, coming from one industry, transitioning into another one. With me, 22 years in the Caribbean, being in the same industry when I got here. Before I got here, I'd already set up my meeting with the branch manager of the financial institution that I wanted to work with, and I interviewed him to see if I wanted to work there. He didn't interview me, but you know what I mean. So.
The Fazaad, you changed from Caribbean to here. I'm sure there are a lot of other skills you utilized as you settled into the workase.
Learning to be Canadian, of course.
All right. So I think the next part that we're going to try to switch up into is, we talked about this concept, especially in our prep meeting, on, you used this word earlier, tribes and support systems and networks. How important was that on your journey, and how can the individuals in this room use those tips to gain some leverage in moving along their career path?
Thank you, Vithu. I think this is a question that's so dear to my heart, and I'll tell you, there's so many cultural nuances to all of us when we come to a new country. Some of it is also traditional. Like, I can speak for myself. When I come from cultures back in India and even Hong Kong, is we're perfect. Okay, nothing. We never do wrong. We don't go wrong. If you go wrong, okay, there is somebody coming after you with a stick, right? So when we come to countries like Canada, we're starting our life here right from scratch. We're afraid to ask questions because we don't want to appear stupid, very honestly. And I used to be one of that person, right? I never asked for feedback. I was very stiff upper lip. Even the initial interviews that I went through, I would be very formal, and I was great at reeling off my resume and telling them what I did back home. But the questions that came from most of the hiring managers were, how did you do this? And I was really flummoxed. I did not know how to express how I did it. And I'm sure some of you, if you have ever gone through with an employment counselor on the interview questions that are asked here in Canada, they have something called as the STAR technique. You have to really explain. Behavioral questions are asked. You have to explain, how did you do certain things? And I did not have that support, but fortunately for me, earlier in my career, when I was struggling to get a job, I was connected with an employment counselor, and she actually showed me what I was doing wrong, literally wrong, because I just believed that because I came with this career from Hong Kong, people would open doors to me, but that's not how it really happens. And we have to be realistic about it, and we have to change. And my biggest learning in that entire journey was being humble enough to receive feedback. And I think most of us will identify, like when we come from countries, we just start comparing everything. The transit, and the weather, and people behave so differently here, and all of those things. And we're not very comfortable with small talk either, if you notice. Like, I come from a place where we don't make eye contact. You can all get into a full crowded lift in Hong Kong, all eyes down. But I had to go through that learning personally as well. I had to evolve from being who I was as an individual. I had to learn skills on how can I make my conversations different. So that was very important. And that's when I started developing what I call is my allies for success. And I literally had an ally for success in all different roles, as I would call them. So I had someone who I would go to who was my mentor. And then I had somebody who was literally my EQ coach, because they would tell me, this is not how you react, this is not how you articulate, or so on and so forth. And eventually, when I did get hired with the support of my employment counselor, and I was working at RBC, I started as a part-time teller in 2014, huge step down from where I came from. I was a senior leader, leading a team of 15. But since I changed industries, I was very realistic about this, that this is where I want to start off, ground level up, learn the ropes. But I struggled. I struggled in my first initial years because I come from a hierarchical mindset as well as hierarchical organizations where I worked before. And I was not able to connect with my managers. If my manager walked in and cracked a joke at me, I'd be very uncomfortable. Because that's not what we do back home. That's not how we interact with a manager. And we refer to them as sir, right? I was the madam when I was back home. So it was just natural that I would connect with them. But I had to change. And very fortunately, while I was in my second year of my role at RBC, I was referred to what's known as Business Edge. It's now currently known as Intercultural Skills Lab, and I have the team sitting right here. And they made a difference to my life in a big way, because I learned through that particular coaching sessions that we had is what is meant by cultural nuances at workplace, the unspoken and unwritten rules of communication. And it changed the way I interacted with my manager, because one thing you will notice when you get into workplaces here is, even though we say we work in a Canadian workplace, each one of us carries some kind of remnant and nuance of where we come from and how we approach work. It can be work ethics, it's the way we connect with our clients, it's the way we ask for work, or even when we don't say no. Because that's one of the things that I think a lot of us struggle with. How do we say no? And that's when I say, if you really want to further your career in Canada, or you're looking just to put the foot through the door, get that team of allies who are going to be, they're going to be your cheerleaders, they're going to be your mentors, they're going to be your safe zone that support you and help you grow.
And it's also got to flow. I'm just going to take what you said and continue it a bit, if I could. But what you're saying is like right on, and even the time and the interest that you have in things, because you got to make the time for it. If you're a gym person, if you're a golf person, if you're a music person, whatever your passion is, and you spend time with people, the best way to get along with somebody is to like them. And hopefully they like you back. And the time it happens. I know people that work at 11 o'clock at night. I can't do that. I'm not sleeping by 11 o'clock at night. I know people that wake up on Saturday morning, 6 o'clock to play a round of golf. I'm still sleeping, by the way, at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. By the time I wake up, golf is done, right? So that's not my thing. I would never do it. But there's a bunch of other things I like to network with people. And today, in this environment that we live in currently, spending time with people, not rushing people, listening to people is at a massive premium. Nobody's doing it. Everybody's doing you a favor, laying it up for you. Everybody you see, everywhere you go, desperately wants somebody to listen to them. Desperately. Doesn't matter how much money they have. And that, to me, is a huge opportunity. Hey, you want to have a coffee? What do you got to lose? No one's going to hurt you. I did a lot of that when I was growing. And mind you, I will say that I remember this day very much when a client comes into my office. He says, Shaun, you should sign on to this new thing called LinkedIn. A number of years ago, mind you, not last week. But I was there. I remember walking out of the first email meeting and saying, who's going to need that? We got the telephone. You'd never do that. You come back from lunch and your slips would be there with all the people who called you. You call them back and you get them on the phone. Now everybody's got a phone on their desk just waiting for me to call because no one else is using it. But I figured that out. Landlines are key. But it's important, right, to find what is something that you can work with and not forcing it. The important thing is not forcing it and let it come naturally, and it'll happen. It'll absolutely happen. And just approaching people and say, hey, look, I'm forming a networking group. I'm looking for 2 people. It can only be 3 of us to be effective. Make it sound like you got something going on. And they're going to want to be a part of that, right? And that's what I did. And without even realizing I was doing it. That's what kind of happened over the years, and you just meet people. A lot of people were going out. This was, you go out for drinks after work, and just kind of happened osmosis. But I think if I had to say it today, that's what I would say, is just kind of look for those opportunities, because they're all over the place, right? And again, I really, really emphasize that, right? Everybody's rushing somebody. Listening to somebody and stopping people and understanding them and spending time with them is at a massive premium right now. And you don't need 2 or 3, 4, you have 2 or 3 people, and that's it.
Before you start, why don't we say, give a big round of applause to MPP Deepak Anand.
So let me go back to your question, Vithu. You're asking newcomer financial advisors, how do they attach or latch on to their tribes, basically? Well, not everyone is fortunate enough to have a tribe. That's the first thing. So as I mentioned when I started, what happened with me is that I checked out my first cousin and I said, I told you before, and he said no, and I got hurt and jaded, and I never asked another family member. And so at that moment, the company that I joined up with, they told me, after 22 years in the job, after qualifying for the $1 Million Round Table so many times, and remember how I mentioned being in the CFO meetings, etc., they said, in order for us to give you a contract, you need to show us that you can do cold calls. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? They said, you sit in the office at 6 o'clock on Monday night, and you make calls from 6 until 9, and if you're successful at that, and you get meetings with clients, and you're able to convert those meetings into sales, then you're going to get the job. And I called one guy, and I didn't understand his accent, because from the Caribbean, everybody has the same accent. I didn't understand his accent, but I questioned him 3 times until he slammed the phone down on me. And I said, nope, I'm not doing this. But I needed to work nonetheless. So I didn't have a tribe, and I needed to do something. So I thought of a practice that some very successful financial advisors were doing back home. They would hire somebody to do cold calls for them and to do networking for them and marketing. So I hired somebody. And I asked her, I said, can you call all these business owners in Brampton where I live, call all these business owners. And listen, most of them said no, and a few of them said yes, and those who said yes became very valuable clients because they were, upper market. So the thing is, if you don't have a tribe, you don't have people that you can latch onto, it's not the end of the world. You can make cold calls and you can find yourself in. The second thing is, and most importantly, is that find an office where you're going to work with which there is a tribe there, meaning that there's people that you can go every day and you can talk with and they can support you in this particular newcomer advisor's career that you're thinking of.
Okay. We're going to jump to another question. So I'm going to go to unscripted questions because one of you guys said something. If you notice the audience, a lot of them nodded. So I'm going to just jump on this question is this entire concept of stepping back versus step up as a newcomer. And it resonated with a lot of people here because a lot of them nodded their heads. So I really want you guys to address how, I think for Shaun, for you and me, we came here when we were 5, 6 years old. We're in a separate section, but I think for Fazaad and Neelam, how did you agree or convince yourself that you needed to step back to really step up?
Very honestly, I had no choice then. I was unemployed for 14 months. I had tried everything that I could to get into my industry. And yes, I did want to get into that compensation level and that lifestyle and everything. But I realized very quickly I was running out of options. And so when no doors were no doors were opening, the only door that opened to me was RBC. And while everybody was talking about, no Canadian experience, sorry, we can't hire you. And, I really couldn't figure out what is going on. So when RBC opened its doors to me saying, we recognize your skill set, we think maybe you're useful here, so why not? And so I applied for the role, but I think when I got into the role initially, there's one thing that I would take credit for is I did not think of it as, beneath me. I did not think of it as I'm losing my dignity, which happens to a lot of us because we all have egos, inflated egos, especially when we look at our titles on LinkedIn. And I see a lot of us, we put our big titles there, vice president and so forth. And I was one of them, I won't lie, but I separated myself from all of that. I said, this is my place to learn, to grow. And I embraced that teller position, and I was part-time at the time, folks. It wasn't even full-time position, but I embraced it with all the passion that the same passion that I would show as a leader of any particular organization. And I think one thing that I would say to everybody is your leadership skills will remain constant no matter what role you get into. So that's very important. And that's exactly why I would say 9 years with RBC, if I'm able to progress so steadily, is because of the attitude. And that's what we want to hold close, that don't be afraid to step back, step down, because have that innate confidence in yourself. It's in you to go back up. And that's what kept me. Asking for more, dressing up for success, that was another thing I would always recommend. Please do not think that you have to dress differently just because you're in a certain role. Bring respect and dignity to whatever role you're doing, and you will shine through. So I would say never be hesitant to take a step back, because the growth is within us. It's our attitude and potential that will bring us back to where we want to go.
Wonderful. Fazaad?
Yeah, so Vithu, I came here roughly in 2012, and so that's about 11 years ago. And as I mentioned earlier on, I had come from a particular position whereby I was an MBA, I had 2 designations from the United States, I was sitting in high-level meetings, and then I came to Canada. Obviously, I came with a chip on my shoulder because to come, you have to have a degree, you have to have money, and et cetera, a successful life. I came at age 48. I walked into the office of the guy who was interviewing me, and when we walked out and I said goodbye, I already had a Mercedes in Canada, and he had a Corolla or something like that was valued $2,000. Instantly, I thought, why is even he interviewing me? I had a chip on my shoulder, and everybody saw that I had a chip on my shoulder. I walked around with it for about 2 years, that chip on my shoulder, until I started to understand that, and everybody's going to have this problem. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to have it, because you didn't come here where you came, I don't know, where you basically are a refugee and you're glad for the opportunity. You made a conscious decision, I'm going to migrate to Canada. And you can only migrate if you've got money and education. That's just the two things. So when I presented my resume at one time to one hiring manager, he started to ask me some questions, and I said, didn't you look at my resume? So he said, no, I haven't had a chance. And I scoffed at him instantly, because as a hiring manager, I would read the resume before. But he never read my resume, and I thought how belittling he is of me that he wouldn't even look at my resume. And now I get to understand why all of this happens. Because your impressive resume is only an impressive resume. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody really cares, because that's what you did back home. That's how you were home. And when you come here, what has to happen is that they need to see you get in the trenches, and you may start in the trenches. But if you were successful back home, you are very likely to be successful here if you were successful home based on hard work and based on application. So if you come here and you expect that, okay, I want to make something of myself here just as I did back home, it's very easy, because the principles of success are the principles of success. So you decide where I'm going to work, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to work, how do I need to apply myself, what's the common culture of the organization, adapt to it, and start moving forward. And let me tell you, by the yard it's hard, but anything, inch by inch, it's a cinch. Therefore, every single day you make an improvement at your workplace, and you start getting noticed. Like, that new guy? He's really working hard. He's really applying himself. He's really trying. And you smile a lot in Canada. You smile a lot. And you smile, and everybody gets to like you, and suddenly you start getting embraced. But for 2 years, I walked around as if, I was one of the managers from back home, and if I saw somebody doing something wrong, I would frown at them, even though, I don't know what's going on. So there you go, Vithu. Yeah. Thank you, Vithu.
I think before we go into our finale, one of the questions that really we wanted to address is, a lot of us who come from different parts of the world are coming from a cultural or a space where we all kind of look like the same. Not that all of us are the same, but like we have similar cultures, similar backgrounds, maybe similar religions, similar practices. But when you come into Canada, it is, for a lot of us, I work with a lot of newcomers, it is very shocking on how to adapt to diversity and how to live within this space. For some of us, we grew up here. But for some of us, it's like, okay, we're, let's say, a community of brown individuals. We come here and it looks like the world. And how do we adapt? And how do you, as an employer, set up a space that allows for this person to come in and grow into this space? So I think that's the question for the floor.
I can take that, actually. So first of all, I think we are addressing diversity in the workplaces. And I think one of the things that I have come to realize in my 10 years here is, when we initially come from the countries we come from, we're just looking at the visible signs of diversity. Okay, who looks like us, doesn't look like us. We start forming a confirmation biases. Okay, this is how this person is going to behave. This is how they are going to talk. We kind of even prep ourselves, right, when we are meeting somebody from other diversities. And it's been an learning for me, because as a client advisor or teller, that was my role. My role was to greet clients that came in all United Colors of Benetton. And it was exciting, and I started to find myself forming different kinds of greetings, actually, to welcome them. And one thing that I realized very quickly, that if in my role to be successful, if I had to connect with this diversity, I had to quickly start moving away from that, what was visible, and start connecting at a deeper level. And that's where came in about stories. What is it that people like? What did my clients like? Or, what is it that they connect with? Or even getting to know how do they like to be greeted? And then I started to form my own kind of a black book on which client and which diversity and what am I learning from them. So having that curiosity really helped. And there's this invisible diversity that all of us probably know of when we start working, but we're not as aware of it, is how we approach work. If you notice how certain communities or certain diversities, their approach to work is, when they come in, they don't want to talk to anyone, it's just work, work, work. Whereas there are others who are like more relaxed, they would go have in a chat, they're more work-life balance oriented. There are also certain diversities where you'll see they're more comfortable saying no, but there are others that will not because that's how we're brought up. And so I think the first thing is to acknowledge about it. And the acknowledgement is not about the difference out there, but our reaction to it. I always put it back to us that what can I learn from this interaction with this particular individual? And I tell you, my 10 years here in Canada, I am so much a better human being because I get an opportunity to challenge my own confirmation biases of every person I meet. And that makes me more open-minded, and I think I have better work and personal experiences because of that.
Next on the floor.
I was going to say that we were young when we started, but it wasn't a layup. I didn't go to college after high school. I started working pretty much a year after high school. I went to college part-time and earned my finance and management diploma at Humber College, which I really loved that experience. But I worked from the bottom up and building a practice. It was cold calling. I didn't have that natural network. So I really feel that what you're saying is absolutely true. You got to like somebody and be likable and interesting and interested. But what I will say as a client, a Jewish client, I get along well with everybody. I have a number of different clients' backgrounds and various, because I treat everybody like a person. And everybody wants to be loved. Everybody's the same. Everybody likes a hot sauce, has something sweet they like, likes coffee, and they want to be loved and cared for. And we're given an instinct, I'm convinced, the general public, no one understands money. No one understands this stuff, right? That's why people get taken advantage of all the time. But we have an instinct that tells us, is somebody really listening to me? Are they clicking away? Can I hear the clicking while they're on the phone? Do I really feel they've got my back? Are they asking the right questions? Do they understand it? Do they get it? Do they get that my last name is different than my husband's? These things are very important. I was brought up by women, so I had that advantage. My mother, my sisters, my cousins, my aunts, primarily women. So I had that advantage. I always connect with women very well and very easily, whereas a lot of men are struggling with that, even today, in a lot of cases. So that's an opportunity to connect with people that are dying and hungry to be connected with because they have so much on their plate looking after a lot of people. Transition of wealth, women are at the front line for that, right? Not men. That's where the money is being transitioned from, right? From, not to. So that's a real thing, right? That's a very real thing. But I really feel that, and those skill sets and really understanding somebody. And a Jewish client gave me this book called The Color of Water. And the premise of the book is that we're all the color of water. We see, but in the eyes of God, I'm a spiritual person. I do have my beliefs. Not that I want to talk about that today or any time, but I do feel that we are connected in that way, and I lead with that. I absolutely lead with that because people want to feel that. They don't want to hear it, but they want to feel it, and I lead with that absolutely. So I connect with a lot of people in that deep way, and I have an understanding for them, and I also am very interested in them. And if you think about it, I'll leave you with this one thought. The majority of people in Canada that have wealth, that have this type of thing going on that everybody wants as a client, the majority, the lion's share of that population are the people that helped build this country and create, that you and I saw firsthand what they did for us in this society, and I will do everything I can to possibly give back to them. That's a huge opportunity that nobody's paying attention to. And they want to hear that story, and they'll love you for telling them, and they'll want to be with you if you've got that story in your heart, because they know that they built it. They just don't feel the love anymore. Nobody cares about anybody like that anymore, except the politicians who work for them as constituents. And that's all I have to say.
Oh my God, Shaun. So let me explain something. As you see my color, being born in Guyana, like Shaun, we were told that our grandparents came from India, and India has caste system. Therefore, that's what we were told. I don't know how true it is. Therefore, when you go to when you go to Canada, you're going to meet people in Brampton who are of different higher caste than you, and they're going to look down at you, and they're never going to speak with you. So that's what we were told. I don't know if it's true or not. But there was one day I saw a Sikh person with his turban, and I looked at him, and he looked at me with his piercing eyes, and he looked away. And I thought, wow, it is really true. Then another day, I saw another one, and I thought, I'm a smiling person. So I looked at him, and before he looked away, I looked at him and I smiled, like, hi, how are you? And he looked at me quizzically, and then he smiled. And I said, aha, if he can smile, everyone can smile. Fast forward a few months later on, you remember how I mentioned to you that I had somebody making some cold calls and I'm going to interviews? So I walked into a lawyer's office, and as soon as I walked into the lawyer's office, he's a Sikh lawyer with his turban, etc., etc., and I thought, oh my God, there's no business happening here. He's just going to politely listen to me for a minute and then tell me he's very busy, etc. The guy is one of my best clients today because when I started talking to him, I asked him about his family, I asked him some questions, and I saw deep in his eyes some sort of pain, which I'm not going into, but we connected. And he's one of my best clients today. I realized that we have our own biases. We have this biases when we're coming here with what we're told that, you know, watch out, he's not gonna like you, that one's not gonna like you, they are different. But if you are an honest, genuine, happy person, then most people are going to like you, and people do business with those who they like and trust. And as a result, I realized that I stopped seeing people at face value. I see them, as Shaun has mentioned, with their heart, and I see them, as Neelam has mentioned also, about being able to connect with them at a different level. So diversity in the workplace for a newcomer, if you work in an office, you're going to find it. Learn to adapt. Diversity with clients, don't start thinking that I'm only going to see a certain type of person because you're short-selling yourself.
Okay, that's an awesome segue to our conclusion, which is not going to be long. But what we really want to do is give them like 3 bullet points from each of you, what the takeaway from your messaging from today should be, for them to build their career in the financial services industry in Canada.
I would say do something unique that nobody's thinking about. How many people in the room, a newcomer, has listened to a Gordon Lightfoot song, has listened to a Guess Who song, has really understood the amazing music that continues to come from Canada through the 70s and 80s? How many, by a show of hands? How many? Gordon Lightfoot. Any song. Sundown, right? Sundown, you better take care. I'm going to close with a prop. I brought one more. But listen to one of these songs. You know the amazing conversation you could have with people about Gordon Lightfoot? And if you know his songs, that's all they care about. They'll talk to you for hours on end about that. Trooper, Triumph, Rush. Learn about this stuff. This is what people really care about, right?
Or the Blue
It's
Jays.
what they really care about. Absolutely, they do. Sports, yeah, but not everybody's into sports. But everybody loves Gordon Lightfoot. Look at the tributes they paid to this guy when he died, right? So I have 2 fountain pens. One is called Before Breakfast, and it's got a steel cap with a magnet in it. So it clips on there, and I use orange ink in this pen. This is a Pilot fountain pen, and I use black blue ink in this. So I've got 5 fountain pens in total. I use different inks. They're not expensive. Inks are last you a bottle a year. Like, it's so environmentally friendly, it's crazy. If I pull out a ballpoint pen, it's so boring. Everybody's got a ballpoint pen. I could talk to a client for an hour. With a prospect, I could talk to somebody on the subway an hour about these pens. The inks that I use, they may like the inks. Like, these are interesting things that I do just because I like it, but people like this stuff, right? People love this stuff, and I would encourage you to learn about Canada, learn about the songs, Google stuff, the top 10 hits in 1981. If you're going after a segment of the population that were young at that time, learn about the music, right? I talk about a burger store that used to be at a corner of wherever, and people understand that. If some people start crying, they remember it, right? But these are things that connect to people, right? So that's what I would encourage you to do. If you're here and you want to build a life here, learn about Canada, right? Everybody goes to the sweet shop that we grew up with and buys all the stuff from our home, and you know, we still do that. I still do that, and I still love it, but I'm deeply in love with the culture in this country. I love it, and I always will. And I could connect with a lot of people very easily because I understand and love it just as much as they do, but nobody talks about it. So my takeaway to leave you with one point is to love stuff that other people love And you'll find love for it, because music is universal and it's there to be loved and there to be shared and talked about. But somebody talking about the stock market, somebody talking about insurance, somebody talking about all manner of things, looking for a job. How many conversations do you think I can have on these fountain pens and you're talking about career? Like, I'm 10 people ahead of you with these 2 fountain pens, right? Doesn't matter where you are. MBA, doesn't matter. These 2 fountain pens get me in any door. There's a company called Laywines, Laywines, Laywines. They're in Yorkville. There's Wonder Pens. But if you Google, I do this once a week, I Google Laywines just to see what pens are selling, right? Pens are selling $1,500, $1,300, $1,600. Fountain pens are selling. Bestseller. Sold out. Who's buying this stuff, right? Fountain pens. There you go.
So, Shaun, I have to just add to that. One of the interview questions we do ask when we're hiring is, can you sell a pen to us? And you're definitely hired. You did a very good job at that.
You know, Shaun has just aged himself.
That's right.
All right. So, Fazaad, if you could give our...
Is it one takeaway you're asking for, or 3?
Yeah.
Or just one?
Give us your best one.
Okay. You know, one of the times in which I was struggling in Canada, one person said to me, he says, everybody makes it in Canada. And I thought, if I can just hold on to that everybody makes it in Canada. But it's not end all, everybody makes it in Canada. Everybody makes it in Canada if you start from the bottom and you begin to work your way up, because the longest journey begins with a single step, or the first one. So if you're a newcomer to Canada, whatever is your dream, if your dream is to be here, to be a newcomer and stay in Canada, ask yourself, what is my destination? Where would I like to go? Find the first step, start working it. That's all I can say.
I'm really passionate about it. Just going to say this one more time. I am so passionate about this. If you learn 2 or 3 Gordon Lightfoot songs and you walk into an interview and you say, I just spent 5 hours going through Gordon Lightfoot's catalog, they're going to say, what? What song do you like? Never mind the interview. Let's talk about Gordon Lightfoot. I guarantee you, my name, very unique name, look me up, send me an email saying you're full of it. It didn't happen. I tried it. Didn't work. That's my challenge to the room. Learn about something about this country, because it's an amazing country above and beyond all the reasons people talk about. It's a lull in here.
I think I resonate the thoughts presented by both my fellow panelists. And one thing I want to say, what Shaun spoke to is, it's very true. If this is your country of choice, it's very, very important to recognize, celebrate, and immerse yourself in the Canadian culture, because that's definitely one thing that I say binds all of us. And yes, I am a big fan of Gordon Lightfoot, so probably I'm on your good list, right? And more to what Fazaad said, right? It's true. Everybody can make it here in Canada, and the good thing about Canada is we really, really connect at a personal level. And if we like you, we are going to give you that chance. But it's about us as new immigrants also coming more than halfway to see how are we representing our brand. So for me, it's more about soft skills, which I think I would want to highlight more to our newcomers is create your brand. Who are you? When you walk into the room, you want to make yourself memorable. People want to get to know you, but are you coming halfway to talk about your story? Because one thing I learned in my journey is you can be very smart, very hardworking, the best in the room, but if you don't talk about it, nobody's really noticing you. So this is a place where visibility is important. And the other thing I would say from my own experience is, as I look back like 10 years, so many stages of my life, like even now, like when there are certain things or certain situations, which in your case it would be seeking that job, there's fear. And there is this fear about getting uncomfortable. And I would want to leave everybody with just one thing. Please get uncomfortable, because that's when you'll discover the best version of yourself. So get out of your comfort zone is my advice to each one of you. Thank you.
That just took us a journey of how I think the goal for us and what we wanted to do here is to tell you the pathways. So this is the first financial summit for newcomer advisors. So in year 10 or 11, that it'll be you telling us the stories from here. And that's the ultimate
Amen to
goal,
that, yes.
right? That's our success, because like, a lot of us are here to give back. And to see what we give back to when we mentor and we see our mentees succeed in everything, we're the biggest, most excited people for them. So that's the goal, and I think we've hit that. And I think there's so many great things that you got from these panelists that come with a wealth of information. If they're around, please bug them, whether it's the story of the fountain pen or anything else. Please bug them, and there's great.
Remember the fountain pen.
Yeah, see, no, those matter. And there's so many resources that's sitting outside for you from, Rotman's, or it's from the labs, or from the educational resources. So please also feel free to check them out. And with that, I want to say a wholehearted thank you to, we'll go ladies first on this time, Neelam Advani, Shaun Darchiville, Fazaad Bacchus. Thank you so much. My name is Vithu Ramachandran, and we're signing off.
Thank you, Vithu.
Thank you, Vithu.
Hey, my name is Shara Santan, and I'm the COO here at 369 Connect, the full-service marketing agency that helped put together this entire summit, the 2023 Financial Summit for Newcomer Advisors. If you enjoyed this segment or are interested in learning more about our future sessions, please do follow us on socials. Our handle is 369 Connect. Connect with a K. And if you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to reach out to us at hello@369connect.co. And please do follow us on our socials, on YouTube, like and subscribe.